My Last Duchess is a great dramatic monologue. Today we'll discuss Robert Browning's My Last Duchess. It's a great dramatic monologue. The speaker is the Duke of Ferrara, a 16th century nobleman of Italy. He is represented as speaking his mind aloud to a silent listener. First of all, we will discuss that what is the dramatic monologue. The dramatic monologue is appropriate for psychological analysis. The character's words reveal his personality, mind, and nature. Simply, a dramatic monologue is a form of drama. And Browning is the greatest inventor of the form of poetry that is called dramatic monologue, where two characters are there in the poem. One is the speaker and the other is the silent listener. In this poem, My Last Duchess, the poet is described about the characteristics of the Duke of Ferrara as well as his last Duchess. The basic things which we need to identify in this poem, that how the character of the Duke and the Duchess revered. Here in the first paragraph, as you can see, the Ferrara. Ferrara is the name of the Duke and it's a city in Italy. The Duke was famous with this name as the Duke of Ferrara. Ferrara is the city situated in Italy and renowned for its culture during the Renaissance period. In the first paragraph of the poem, which is called like That's My Last Duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive, I call that piece a wonder. Now, Fra Pendol's hand worked busily a day, and there she stands. So these are the words of Duke of Ferrara, and to whom he is addressing in the poem is not mentioned directly by the poet, but it is mentioned later that the Duke is addressing to an envoy, a messenger of the count, messenger of a count. The Duke said to the envoy of a count who come to the Duke of Ferrara to negotiate a marriage between him and the count's daughter. The Duke is a widower. He shows the messenger his picture gallery, where he draws attention to the portrait of his last Duchess. The painting is so well done that it reflects a lifelike and realistic vitality. The Duke proudly tells the messenger that it is a wonderful work of art, painted by the famous artist Fra Pendol. The artist's hands worked merely for a day to produce the marvelous picture of the Duchess. The Duke calls upon that boy to sit and admire the work of art leisurely. I said Fra Pendol by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. But to myself they turn, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as they would ask me, if they burst, such a glance came there. So not the first you, but to turn and ask does. So these are the words again by the Duke. And what the Duke is saying in this paragraph, he said that he named the painter intentionally. Intentionally, he described the name to the messenger, the painter's name. He's Prapendahl. He says that whenever strangers like the envoy have looked at the painting, they have been surprised to notice the deep and passionate look in the earnest eyes of the Duchess. They had always turned to the Duke with an inquiring look, for he alone drew aside the curtain of the painting. Though none of them had the courage to ask him any question, the Duke had easily interpreted their inquiring look. They wanted to know how that look came to be in the Duchess's eyes. The Count's envoy was not the first to show an interest to know how the depth and passion had entered the painted eye. Here, we can describe the particular paragraph in an easy manner, where the Duke's character is revealed here. The Duke is authoritarian. The Duke's character, the kind of character is revealed in this paragraph is the authoritarianism. He indicates interpretation in the main argument. Actually, the line in the parenthesis reinforces the sense of aggressive possessiveness in the Duke. The Duke was a possessive husband. And so that he deliberately mentioned the name of the artist by saying that Fra Pendolf was a monk by profession, and he addressing to the messenger that intentionally he called him to portray the portrait of his beloved wife. He also mentioned that nobody have the right to draw the curtain whenever the Duke is present there. In the next paragraph, the Duke addressing to the messenger and said, "Sir, it was not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Perhaps Frau Pendolf's chance to say her mental lapse over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half blush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy." In this paragraph, the poet describes the Duke's another character, and that is the character of suspicion. Yes, the Duke has a suspicious character for his wife, so that he said that this blush of joy on the Duchess's face, which you can clearly see in this picture, the cheek of the Duchess, which are blushing in the painting, and the painting is so lively. He said that it was not caused by the presence of her husband only. It was not the reason that the Duke was present there, but anything can make such kind of blushing on her cheek. He said it could have been caused by any number of trivial things. Perhaps might be possible that the painter happened to remark that her cloak was covering too great a part of her wrist, suggesting thereby that her beauty was hidden. Or he might have said that he could never hope to portray that soft rosy tint suffusing the throat of the Duchess and fading away along her neck. Such trivial compliments, says the Duke, were taken seriously as sign of regard by the Duchess and were sufficient to bring a blush of happiness to her cheek. So these lines are actually describe the temperament of Duke and the Duchess. What kind of temperament we have seen in these lines? That the Duke was a possessive, suspicious, as well as hypocrite by the nature. But the Duchess was spontaneous, generous, and a very humble lady. For her, every person's praise, whether the praise was given by her husband or any other authoritative person or by any common person, but for her it was a praise. So there was not a discrimination between the Duchess's conception, the kind of praise. The Duchess was childishly innocent and appreciated even little acts of courtesy. But the Duke implies that the Duchess had no sense of her dignified status. The Duke's egotism is apparent, for the desired his wife to feel happy only in his presence. So this was the discrimination between both of their characters, that the Duke was a hypocrite, suspicious, possessive, and have proud of on his dignified position of a Duke. On the contrary, the Duchess was innocent, childish, and courteous lady, and have lack of ego also. In the next paragraph, in this present paragraph, the poet describes the characteristic of the Duchess by the dialogues of the Duke. The Duke said, she had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. So it was all one, my figure at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the buff of cherries some officious fool brought in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would grow from her alike. What he said? He said, the reminiscences about the Duchess as he sees her portrait. He tells the envoy that his dead wife had no sense of discrimination in being pleased. She was too easily pleased and moved by trivial things. The Duke tries to find the best words to express his contemptuous feeling for her lack of discrimination. She was interested in and liked everything she saw. She could not distinguish a thing of worth from triviality. She had no taste or propriety. Everything thrilled and pleased her, so much so that she seemed to hold the Duke's gift in the same category as other, less important things. Her happiness at his gift of some ornaments of her to wear and at her breast was equal to her joy at seeing the sunset. She was equally pleased when some obliging fellow, offering unwanted services, presented her a branch of cherries broken from the orchard. She showed the same happiness when she took a ride on her white mule round the terrace. She expressed her appreciation in words, or at least with a blush of happiness to all and sundry. Now, what is the lines present actually? The meaning of the Duke is that his wife is lack of dignified aloofness. He considered himself as a superior. It was disliked by him to compare or give the same kind of gesture when the gift was given by her husband, or a simple gift given by some official fool, some employee, or any other thing which are appreciable or full of happiness for the Duchess. Ironically enough, the reader realizes the innocent beauty of the Duchess' nature through the Duke's scornful words. Here, in these lines, we can easily identify the psychological portrayal of Browning. That what is the discrimination, what is the difference between the psychology of the Duke and the Duchess. The Duchess was a simple, emancipated, spontaneous lady, lack of authoritarian attitude. On the contrary, the Duke was a man of hypocrisy, proud, and suspicious nature. She thanked men. Good. But thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-year-old name with anybody's gift. In these lines, the Duke of Ferrara says that it was good if his Duchess thanked people. It's a general attitude of any human being to thank the person. But what he resented was her way of thanking. She thanked people effusively for their petty gifts. It seemed as if she could not distinguish between the great gift of a 900-year-old name, which he had bestowed on her by marrying her, from the trivial gifts which others gave her. She seemed to consider his great family name on an equal level with ordinary courtesy from anybody. These lines are actually define the egoism and pride characteristic of the Duke. Too proud. The Duke are too proud of his old family name. He is conscious of having done his wife a great favor by marrying her, for which she ought feel specially gratified. So this was the discrimination between husband and wife, that the Duke was very egoistic, full of pride of her 900 years old name, family name, ancestral family name. And if wife was very childish and innocent and generous and humble with the people, it seems for him like she is undignified or disgratified his great name of his family. In the next paragraph, he said, who would stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even have you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one, and say just this, or that in you disgust me, here you miss, or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessened so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth and make excuse. Even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. What he say? He said, the Duke said about his late wife to the messenger of the Count, whose daughter he desires to marry. The Duchess had a frank and easy disposition which the Duke thought was not appropriate to the high status of being his wife, but he considered it to be beneath his dignity to criticize and correct the Duchess. Foolish behavior of showing such fervent gratitude to all and sundry. Moreover, says the Duke, He lacked the skill in speech to make a person like his wife understand what he wanted. She was too childish to realize what displeased him. The Duke said that if he had possessed a skillful speech, he might have pointed out her faults of conduct which disgusted him, when she either fell short of decorum or went beyond its limits. Even if she had accepted constant criticism in a good spirit and allowed herself to be guided instead of arguing and discussing with him and justifying her conduct, he would consider the position degrading. It would mean a lowering of dignity to have to teach her how to behave, and the Duke never chose to do anything which meant even a little loss of his dignity. So that here we can see that what kind of tone is adopted by the Duke to describe what is going on between them. He said that it does not mean that he didn't try to console her and try to stop her, try to convince her that behave according to his dignified character, dignified authoritative attitude. He said that he was unable to adopt such kind of things to convince his wife, because if he had do so, it would be very indignified for being a duke. It was not appropriate for him and for his dignity. So in these lines, Duke has expressed his supreme egotism, snobbery, and inflated sense of dignity. In the next lines he said, "Oh sir," she smiled, no doubt, "whenever I passed her, but who passed without?" Much the same smile. This grew. I gave command, and all smiles stopped together. These are the very important lines of the poem where the Duke is describing. By showing the picture of his late wife to the Count's envoy, the Duke of Ferrara speaks of what he considered to be faults in the Duchess. True, she smiled at him whenever he passed by her, but then she smiled at anybody else passed by her too. There was nothing special in her smile for her husband. There was no difference between the way she treated him and the way she treated others. Her habit of smiling and showing appreciation to all and sundry, for the most smiling and showing appreciation for the most trivial of courtesies, increased so much that the Duke could no longer tolerate it. Therefore, he gave certain commands. As a result, all smiles stopped forever. After these chilling words, the Duke calmly comments on the lifelike painting of the Duchess. Politely he asked the envoy to get up and accompany him downstairs where the other of the Count's party are waiting. So these are very suspicious lines that the readers are unable to realize that what kind of commands were given by the Duke. Actually, the commands of murdered her. Why? Because the behavior of the Duchess was intolerable for him. And the result of that, he gave command and all smiles stopped together. Means that he murdered her, killed her. If we criticize these lines, that they were Duchess killed or shut up in the convent. The tone of the words reflects perfectly the closeness of the Duke. Ironically, he can appreciate life in a painting, but as if alive, is preferable to a lie. In the last stanza of the poem, the poet says, "There she stands, as if alive. Will it please you rise? We'll meet the company below." Then, so the poet expressing the attitude of the Duke, that very arrogantly he commands to the messenger to catch up from the place and ready to meet with the other people who are waiting for them in the Count's party. He repeats again. He said, "I repeat, the Count, your master's known munificence, is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self as I ought. Extorting is my object." So in these lines, the poet clearly describes that what is the meaning of having a wife for the Duke. That any girl or any wife, any duchess who came in his life, that would be only an object for him. So, explaining these lines, the Duke now talks about his intended marriage to the Count's daughter. He tells the messenger that he is well aware of his master, the Count's reputation of generosity. Munificence are the reputation of generosity. The Duke considers the Count's known generosity as sufficient guarantee that he would be getting a large dowry to satisfy his legitimate expectations. He adds with cunning touch that his primary concern is, of course, the beautiful daughter of the Count, as he had said at the very outset.